Kev, obviously the decision has been made not to travel to Catalans this weekend. Can you just take us through the timetable of how we got to this point?
Yeah, I think we're probably best starting Tuesday. We were in conversations with Catalan and the RFL, and the RFL board made a decision that the game was to go ahead, which we fully supported. We wanted to play. But then a lot changed, circumstances changed, government advice changed, and we have a member of our squad who was infiltrating Monday, came in showing some symptoms early Tuesday, was sent home with some antibiotics. It started to improve Wednesday, but then a really bad night, so on the back of that spent some time on the phone with the NHS with all symptoms. So when you pull all that together, I think if the game would have been in the UK, we would absolutely have played the game, would have followed UK guidelines and advice. And as you know, yesterday there was the big Cobra meeting, and on the back of that brought out more advice and more guidelines. And I think some of the difficulty throughout the day was, in particular, when you're travelling to Spain and then moving up into France, we had to consider all three governments and what their advice was, alongside the possibility of having an infected player, alongside our own government advising banning overseas school trips. And for us that sort of really concerned us, because we couldn't take a scholarship team to France or Spain, but our first team can go, and that seemed really conflicting. And so we went through the whole process, and ultimately I like to think that all decisions here are made with health and well-being and care right at the front of those, and with that in mind, we felt it had been really irresponsible to travel and put people at risk.
And obviously the flight the team were taking was a normal scheduled flight. There would have been other members of the public on there, and the thought of putting those people at risk as well was paramount.
Yeah, well, I think we're all aware of which parts of society are vulnerable, and given the player in question had been in contact with our full squad and staff, albeit again with government guidelines, they didn't need to isolate. Effectively they were getting on a plane where all of them, some of them could have been carrying the virus, and there's some things that are bigger than a game and the sport. But also to turn up in France and play against Catalan and potentially, these are all if, buts and maybes, but potentially infect a full Catalan squad and team and staff, just really irresponsible. So I just think we had to do the right thing and make the right decision. And after a lot of deliberation yesterday, a lot of intel gathering and research, and I feel absolutely we got to the right place. And I'd just like to put on record a couple of things. Our Chief Medical Officer was outstanding, the work he did yesterday in particular and today, but also Catalans Dragons, given the disappointment of them being told to carry on and play this game this weekend, but to completely understand our position and support it last night was absolutely the right thing to do. And I thank Steve McNamara and Bernard for that.
And talking specifically about the player involved, obviously we're not naming the player, it's a private medical matter for him, and he's still awaiting those tests. But how is he, and how's things going with him?
Yeah, he's doing it pretty tough, as anybody who has to stay in their house would be for a period of time. His family have been isolated as well. Obviously he can text and he's got use of his mobile phone, but he's trying to do the right thing, and until we get that test result back, he's stuck there. The test was done this morning, and we'll get that back as soon as possible. I think from then we formulated a couple of different plans with different scenarios, but fingers crossed it comes back negative, and we can move forward.
And we've seen from the figures the government have put out, the vast majority of those who have been tested have been negative. So hopefully that is the case, and that means that the squad can move forward as normal next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a huge game next week against St Helens at home. I reiterate, we'd have loved to have played this weekend. The squad have been outstanding, been really good form. There's some momentum building there, and we'd have loved to have continued that this weekend. However, we've all throughout this last couple of days in particular, we control what we can control, and hopefully that test will come back negative, and we'll have a real good week in training and look forward to playing St Helens.
You mentioned there that had the game been in the UK, it's really the travel that's been the deciding factor on this. The under 18s are due to play on Saturday as well. That's going to go ahead as normal.
Yeah, absolutely. It was all about the travel. To go through 3 different countries with 3 different sets of advice. But if the game had been here, if it had been anywhere in the UK, where we would have had to get on a bus and go somewhere, I don't think there'd have been a huge problem with that at all. We'd have gone ahead. Delighted to say the training ground's been completely disinfected yesterday afternoon, all been cleaned, sprayed. Scholarship will train there tonight. Our academy will play tomorrow. It's nothing to do with the sport unless we're told otherwise by the governing body. We absolutely want to continue and fulfil fixtures, and I have to say I'm really disappointed at this point that we've got Rhinos fans out in France. We've got disappointed Rhinos fans who've not been able to travel also, but hopefully they'll understand that we've got to the right place to try and protect our own players, staff and the wider public.